You've got tissues. I hope we don't need those. Everybody think about dead cats or something like that. That will keep you focused from getting emotional. Okay. So I guess the best way to start is just by asking and just explain how on earth did this story even connect with your story, because some people know your story, not everybody does. But so what I've read today, how does this connect with your personal story?
Well, basically, our story, it's quite similar to the story of Zechariah and Elizabeth. We've been trying to have a baby of our own for 8 years now, or so. And my wife is well on in years. And I'm old. And yeah, other than the big angel, the story is very similar. We can relate. We've gone through a couple rounds of IVF treatment and a few different other types of treatment, and yeah, it's been a difficult road at times, but that's how we relate.
Good. All right. So if you don't need to be around the vineyard for a year, 2 years, or anything. You know that these guys worship God. Because if you've come in this morning, Bre was leading worship, Bryan was leading worship. It's kind of cool. Didn't know that was going to happen. So I guess my question for you guys is: it's clear that you're worshippers of God. Okay, we can see that on the stage, and that's good. But how do you enter into the presence with worship? And I'm sure often as you enter into the presence of God, worshiping, hearts still break in times. I don't know if that's true or not, but it's just a question I put down. How do you enter the presence of the King? And how do you keep worshiping? Keep your heart open yet still living in pain?
It's a rather big question. I think through this process, Bryan and I both had to come to a point where there was a choice that we had to make. Either God is who He says He is, and that He will do what He says He's going to do, and that He's good despite our circumstances, or He isn't. And I think both of us made that choice individually, and then as a couple to stand in the belief that despite what we're going through, despite our circumstances, that God is good. And that our difficult times, or whatever we're going through, whatever you're going through, that actually doesn't change God's character. It changes our response to Him sometimes. Sometimes it's anger, sometimes it's frustration, sometimes it's losing hope, but it actually doesn't change who He is, and it doesn't change His character. So I think we made that choice. I remember a conversation, or a couple conversations, where we just said, okay, if this prayer is never answered, if we never have a family, are we still going to choose to follow God? Are we still going to choose to seek Him and serve Him? And we said yes. Might not sound very difficult, but it was. And it still sometimes is. So,
just with regards to worshiping, it is the time when I feel most vulnerable before God, because I'm coming to Him, and you're reading the words that are up on the screen a lot of the time, or that I'm singing, and I'm going, man, I find it hard to relate to that, because that's not my experience yet of singing of God's faithfulness. And then I've gotten good at thinking of areas in my life where I have seen His faithfulness and I have seen His goodness, and I end up focusing on that, and that seems to help quite a bit. Not all the time, but a good chunk of the time. And just worshiping Him for who He is, not because of what He's done. I've learned to do that too, figuring out, okay, this shouldn't be okay, because you've done this for me, God, then I'll worship you. It should just be, I should be worshiping you because of who you are.
And so, last question. All through that story of Zechariah, there's a tension between, the pain and the not. Your dreams maybe dashed and hopes faded, but yet there's this real sense of their hearts open to the unexpected, that this could be the day that the kingdom breaks in. This could be the day that Jesus, the Messiah King, comes from the line of David. And that's His story. We've known that to be true because the King is here and the kingdom has come. But for you guys, my question is the unexpected. How do you keep expectation alive in your hearts, and keep the tension of waiting for good gifts from your Father, from your good Father. How do you keep that in balance or in tension with your hopes deferred, maybe at times, or seems like they're deferred?
Simply by just believing that God is good and that His promises are true. We do live in hope. We live in hope that this could be the day. I mean, we do believe that, but like Bre said, we did come to the point where we're like, well, if it doesn't happen, God's still the same. That doesn't change Him. So I don't feel like we're naive in our hope, and we're not blindly going ahead. Like if there's a new procedure that we hear of medically that we think, here, let's pursue that. We've tried different things like that. We're not just sitting on our laurels and just saying, okay, God's gonna do it. We're positive He's gonna do it. Maybe that's not the way He's gonna show up for us. I mean, we hope it is, but maybe it isn't. But He's still the same, and we do have that expectation. And I suppose when I don't know if there's a date when we give up on looking at it that way. If I'm 70, maybe quit. Yeah, but it might, our dreams might come true a different way. It may just look different. So.
I think it is, hope is deferred, but at the same time, as a Christian, for me, one of the things that I've found is that it's actually been harder to squelch the hope. It's actually been harder for me to go, I don't want to believe, I don't believe. There is still just something within me because I believe in this massive God who created the stars, the sun, the moon. I'm like, my womb, not a problem for him. He spoke, and here we are, everything. So I think when I look at the size of the God that I serve, it's more a matter of just going, okay, sometimes I just want that hope to go away, because then it would be easier, then it wouldn't hurt so much, then I wouldn't have to be frustrated, then I wouldn't have to, cry or, yeah, sorry. But hope deferred is, for me, it's actually gotten to the other stage where I sometimes feel like that crazy woman that they're sitting there going, she's Elizabeth, she's not pregnant, but man, she must have done something weird. I'm like, I'm crazy. You all know that, if you know me well. But I just believe. And I know that could come in 20 years' time. You're all sitting there going, oh, you still might not have kids in 20 years. And that's right. But I'm going to put my hope on the chance that maybe we will. And maybe God will intervene, and maybe He will step in. And that maybe is enough for me to go, okay, hope, you're still alive. And as much as sometimes I want to kill you and kick you to the curb, you're still there and you're still raising up. And sometimes it's a new shoot that is even stronger than the old one that maybe died. So, yeah.
And just last, there's always a last with me. There's that, but yeah, I'm sure that in your life, because I know your story, well, I work with you guys both, outside of the baby and pregnancy and family, surely God's been showing up, or there's been examples of, despite that yet you're still open and expecting because you've seen God move in other ways in your life. Is that a reality?
I think that was kind of part of where it was easier for us to make the choice, because you can either choose to look at the one area that God hasn't shown up and ignore all the other areas where He has. And I feel like our lives, our stories are just example after example, story after story of God turning up, of God speaking, of God transforming us, but using us to help others come closer to Him or meet Him for the first time. And yeah, it's easier just to know that, you can choose to focus on what you have, or you can choose to focus on what you don't have. And at the minute we're not blind, we see what we don't have. When we see our friends having kids and we're going, that's number 3, okay, and we don't have one, okay, we still see that. But at the same time we go, look at where we're at, look at the life that we're living, look at the people we're surrounded by, look at our family. We've got so much to be thankful for. So,
Can we just honor them for their vulnerability?